How many people live on the Earth?
There are approximately 6.7 billion people on Earth. The planet's population is expected to grow to 8 billion by the year 2025 and 9.3 billion by 2050.
How did a lake kill more than 2,000 people?
In August 1986, Cameroon's Lake Nyos, which sits upon a volcanic vent, produced an eruption of carbon dioxide and hydrogen sulfide gases. The cloud of acidic gas blew into nearby villages, killing more than 2,000 people while they slept.
What is the Gaza Strip?
This area of land along the Mediterranean Sea at the border of Israel and Egypt was part of Egypt until it was captured by Israel for a brief period in 1956 and 1957 and then permanently in the 1967 war. The Palestinian Liberation Organization, PLO, and Israel agreed to Palestinian self-rule in the Strip in 1994.
Why does Bangladesh flood so often?
Given that most of Bangladesh's elevation is near sea level, and that it is located within the delta of the Ganges and Brahmaputra rivers, it is not remarkable that the country is easily flooded by regular monsoons, periodic winds and accompanying rainfall, and hurricanes. Unfortunately, Bangladesh also suffers from a poor emergency warning system. So people in Bangladesh are not adequately warned of impending disaster.
Which religions are practiced by the most people?
Christianity has the most adherents, with 33.32% of the world's population practicing some form of this faith. This is followed by Islam, 21.01%, Hinduism, 13.26%, and Buddhism, 5.84%.
How many counties are in the United States?
There are 3,043 counties in the United States. The state with the least number of counties is Delaware, with 3, and Texas has the most, with 254.
What is the world's shortest river?
The world's shortest river is Oregon's Dee River, which is a mere 120 feet long, 36.6 meters. It connects Devil's Lake to the Pacific Ocean near Lincoln City, Oregon.
What is the oldest map using the word America?
The map, acquired by the Library of Congress and dated 1507, incorporates many of the findings of the Italian explorer Amerigo Vespucci. The map was thought to be lost, but was rediscovered in 1901, and was kept in a castle in Wulfig, Germany, for more than 350 years.
How does the tilt of the Earth affect the seasons?
Since the Earth is tilted 23.5 degrees, the sun's rays hit the northern and southern hemispheres unequally. When the sun's rays hit one hemisphere directly, the other hemisphere receives diffused rays. The hemisphere that receives the direct rays of the sun experiences summer. The hemisphere that receives the diffused rays experiences winter. Thus, when it is summer in North America, it is winter in most of South America, and vice versa.
What are the largest seas?
Parts of oceans that are surrounded by islands or otherwise partially enclosed are often known as seas. The 5 largest seas in order are, the South China Sea, the Caribbean Sea, the Mediterranean, the Bering Sea, and the Gulf of Mexico.
What are the westerlies?
These winds flow at mid-latitudes, 30 to 60 degrees north and south of the equator, from west to east around the Earth. The high-altitude winds known as the jet stream are also westerlies.
How does water wash away the land?
Drops of rain hit soil and rock and displace grains. When water flows over the surface, it loosens and carries away pieces of rock or soil. There is a tremendous amount of energy in a raindrop. Over days, weeks, months, years, centuries, and millennia. The erosive power of water can cut through even the strongest rocks. The material that the flowing water picks up is eventually deposited. When the flow of the stream slows down, this is known as deposition.
What is Mercosur?
The Southern Cone Common Market, also known as Mercosur, is a trade group that includes Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay, and Uruguay. It was established in 1995 to reduce trade barriers between those 4 countries and to promote economic unity.
Which country was the world's first welfare state?
In 1936, New Zealand became the world's first welfare state by offering its citizens full social security and health benefits.
Is the Gregorian calendar accurate?
Almost. It is still 25 seconds longer than the solar year. Therefore, after about 3,320 years we will be a full day ahead of the solar year. The keepers of time will have to deal with this problem when the time comes.
What is the world's second longest barrier reef?
The second longest barrier reef in the world lies just off the Atlantic coast of Belize, on the northeastern corner of Central America, and consists of Lighthouse Reef and Glover's Reef. Belize's reefs are only a few dozen miles long, while the Great Barrier, the longest reef in the world, is hundreds.
Where is Asia Minor?
Asia Minor is the term used for the larger part of Turkey that lies in Asia, east of the Strait of Bosporus. This part of Turkey is also known as Anatolia.
How many countries are there in Africa?
Africa is home to more than a quarter of the world's countries. There are 47 independent countries on the continent itself and 53 if you include the nearby island countries of Comoros, Madagascar, Seychelles, Cape Verde, Mauritius, and São Tomé and Príncipe.
What caused the Great Indian Ocean Tsunami of December 2004?
A magnitude 9.0 earthquake in the ocean off the coast of Sumatra, Indonesia, caused a reverberating swell of water to move toward Indonesia, Thailand, Sri Lanka, India, and the Maldives. Its effects were felt as far away as Africa, before it finally dissipated.
Where are the Arctic and Antarctic circles?
The Arctic Circle is located at 66.5 degrees north of the equator and the Antarctic Circle is located at 66.5 degrees south of the equator. Areas north of the Arctic Circle and south of the Antarctic Circle have 24 hours of light during the summer and 24 hours of darkness during the winter.
What is a potentially hazardous asteroid or FA?
A FA is an object that is large enough to be detected by astronomers on Earth. It has an orbital path that could bring it in close proximity to Earth.
What is Benelux?
Benelux stands for Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg, and represents an economic alliance between the three, that was formed in the 1940s. At the time Belgium was primarily industrial and the Netherlands was primarily agricultural. The two countries' economies complemented each other, a relationship strengthened by an economic union. Luxembourg, which has a varied economy and is extremely small, has long been closely affiliated with its two larger neighbors, and thus also benefited from the union. Today, the countries are referred to as Benelux whenever referred to in terms of market analyses, commerce, and trade.
Where are the highest rivers in the world?
The highest rivers are in Tibet, where there are two that stand out from all the rest. The Ading River at 20,013 feet, 6,100 meters, and Brahmaputra River at 19,751 feet, 6,020 meters.
Which African country has Spanish as an official language?
Equatorial Guinea, which is composed of 5 islands in the Gulf of Guinea and a tiny sliver of land between Cameroon and Gabon, was a colony of Spain until 1968 and has kept Spanish as its official language. The capital city of Malabo is located on the island of Bioko, previously named Fernando Poo.
How many people speak Arabic in the world?
Approximately 200 million people are native speakers of Arabic, and an additional 200 million are non-native speakers.
How many islands make up the Maldives?
There are approximately 1,192 islands and islets within the territory of the Maldives, of which only 250 are inhabited. Of the inhabited islands, some are actually hotel resorts only, as the islands have only enough space for 1 or 2 hotels. The Maldives lie about 600 miles, 965 kilometers, southwest of India.
What is a perpetual resource?
Perpetual resources are natural resources such as solar energy, wind, and tides that have no chance of being used in excess of their availability. They can be used for power generation and conversion to electric energy.
What were the Buddhas of Bamiyan?
The Buddhas of Bamiyan were two gigantic sculptures, one measuring 180 feet, 55 meters, and the other 121 feet, 37 meters, high, that were built in the 6th century CE. Located 143 miles, 230 kilometers, northwest of Kabul, Afghanistan. They were designated as a UNESCO World Heritage Site and were one of the great archaeological and religious sites in the world. In 2001, the Taliban regime in Afghanistan ordered their destruction, and they were dynamited. Many countries, including Japan and Switzerland, have pledged their support to rebuild these cultural treasures.
What did the Mason-Dixon line originally divide?
While the Mason-Dixon line commonly refers to the division between the North and South in the eastern United States, it was originally a boundary between Pennsylvania and Maryland surveyed by Charles Mason and Jeremiah Dixon in 1763. During the Civil War, the boundary between Pennsylvania and Maryland was extended westward to represent the line between the slave and non-slave states.
What is the Green Revolution?
The Green Revolution began in the 1960s as an effort by international organizations, especially the United Nations, to help increase the agricultural production of less developed nations. Since that time, technology has helped improve crop output, which is reaching all-time highs throughout the world.
Which state borders the most others?
Tennessee borders 8 states: Arkansas, Missouri, Kentucky, Virginia, North Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi. Missouri also borders 8 states: Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky, and Illinois.
What does a 40% chance of rain really mean?
When the morning weather report speaks of a 40% chance of rain, it means that throughout the area, usually the metropolitan area, there is a 4 in 10 chance that at least 0.001 of an inch of rain, 0.0025 centimeters, will fall on any given point in the area.
Does Yugoslavia still exist?
In 1991, the republics of Yugoslavia fell into disarray. and aligned themselves on ethnic and cultural fronts. The old geographic divisions of the country fell apart, and war broke out between various states, including Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Macedonia, and Serbia and Montenegro. Later, in 2006, Montenegro and Serbia also broke apart, and both declared their independence as separate countries in a referendum. Most recently, Kosovo unilaterally declared its independence from Serbia in 2008. Thus, over the course of just 17 years, 7 new countries were added to the map of the world.
Why is it more likely to rain in a city during the week than on the weekend?
Urban areas have an increased likelihood of precipitation during the work week because intense activity from factories and vehicles produce particles that allow moisture in the atmosphere to form raindrops. These same culprits also produce warm air that rises to create precipitation. A study of the city of Paris found that precipitation increased throughout the week and dropped sharply on Saturday and Sunday.
What is the difference between a bay and a gulf?
Both are bodies of water partially surrounded by land, and a bay is a smaller version of a gulf. Famous bays include the San Francisco Bay, California, the Bay of Pigs, Cuba, Chesapeake Bay, Maryland/Virginia area, Hudson Bay, Canada, the Bay of Bengal, a large bay near India and Southeast Asia, and the Bay of Biscay, France. Famous gulfs include the Gulf of Mexico, southern United States, the Persian Gulf between Saudi Arabia and Iran, and the Gulf of Aden, between the Red Sea and the Arabian Sea.
Who settled Denmark?
Surprisingly, Denmark was not settled by Europeans from the continent directly to its south, but was settled in the 10th century by Danes from Iceland and the Scandinavian peninsula.
Why is there such controversy about defining the tallest building in the world?
Most of the controversy about which building is the tallest centers around defining what is a building versus what is a structure. Some buildings, in order to be listed among the tallest buildings, add other non-habitable structures to the top in order to rise in the rankings. These structures may be in the form of communication towers, which can easily add significant height to the building.
What is the largest continent?
The largest continent is Eurasia, Europe and Asia combined. At 21,100,000 square miles, 54,649,000 square kilometers. But even if you consider Europe and Asia to be two separate continents, Asia is still the largest, at 17,300,000 square miles, 44,807,000 square kilometers.
What is a delta?
A delta is a low-lying area where a river meets the sea. Often, the river divides into many tributary streams, forming a triangular-shaped area. The river deposits a large amount of sediment at its mouth, creating excellent soil for farming once the channel of the stream moves. One of the most famous deltas is where the Nile River meets the Mediterranean Sea. Other major deltas include the Mississippi River Delta in Louisiana, the Ganges River Delta in India, and the Yangtze Delta in China. The word delta comes from the Greek letter delta, referring to its triangular shape when written.
Is there any permanent ice in Africa?
Though located within 3 degrees of the equator, there is ice year-round at the top of Mt. Kilimanjaro, 19,340 feet, 5,895 meters, in the air.
Who was Lech Walesa?
In 1970 Lech Walesa was one of the leaders of a shipyard workers' strike in Gdansk, Poland. Later, he organized workers in non-communist labor unions, arguing for improved conditions for workers. In 1980, he led the Gdansk shipyard strike, which ended with the government agreeing with his provisions on behalf of workers, including the right to strike and the right to form independent unions. The Catholic Church, which is very influential in Poland, supported his activities, including his formation of the Solidarity movement. Walesa was later elected President of Poland and served in office from 1990 to 1995.
Who are the Maori?
The Maori are the indigenous inhabitants of New Zealand. Around the 9th century, the Maori arrived in New Zealand from other Pacific islands. In 1769 there were over 100,000 Maori, but their population decreased significantly to 40,000 by the end of the 19th century, due to European colonization. In the 20th century, the Maori population has expanded to 632,000 in New Zealand, with another 73,000 living in Australia. Maoris now comprise 15% of New Zealand's population.
Does the Earth always rotate and revolve around the Sun at the same speed?
No, the Earth's revolution around the Sun and rotation on its axis are not perfect. Its daily rotation may vary by approximately 4 to 5 milliseconds, and is slowing down at a rate of 1 millisecond each century, due to tidal friction. Additionally, the axis wobbles slightly, and the length of revolution around the Sun varies by a few milliseconds.
What is the National Geographic Roper Public Affairs Geographic Literacy Study?
This study assesses the geographic knowledge of young American adults between the ages of 18 and 24. The survey also asks respondents how much they think they know about geography and other subjects, as well as their views on the importance of geographic, technological and cultural knowledge in today's world.
What is the difference between magma and lava?
Magma is hot, liquefied rock that lies underneath the surface of the Earth. When magma erupts or flows from a volcano onto the Earth's surface, it becomes lava. There is no difference in substance, only the name changes.
What are the Cordilleras of Colombia?
In Colombia, the Andes are split into 3 separate mountain ranges. They are the Cordillera Occidental, Western Range, the Cordillera Central, Central Range, and the Cordillera Oriental, Eastern Range. The city of Cali is located in the valley between the Occidental and Central Ranges, while Bogotá is located between the Central and Oriental.
Where is Tornado Alley?
Tornadoes occur more frequently in the central United States than anywhere else in the world. Tornado Alley is an area stretching from northwest Texas across Oklahoma, the tornado capital of the world, and through northeast Kansas. On average, over 200 tornadoes occur across Tornado Alley each year.
What road in the United States was known as the National Road?
The Cumberland Road, also known as the National Road, was the first federally funded road in the United States. Though construction began in 1811, the Cumberland Road was not completed until 1852, stretching 800 miles. 1,287 kilometers, from Cumberland, Maryland, to Vandalia, Illinois. The road was built to allow settlers to traverse the Appalachian Mountains and settle in the West. With the advent of the automobile, The road was paved, and in 1926 became part of U.S. Route 40, which stretches across the continent.
What is a rain shadow?
When the moisture in the air is squeezed out by orographic precipitation. There's not much left for the other side of the mountains. The dry side of the mountain experiences a rain shadow effect because they are in the shadow of the rain.
How wide is a degree of latitude?
Though there are only about a dozen lines of latitude shown on most globes and world maps. The Earth is actually divided into 180 lines of latitude. The distance between each line of latitude is called a degree. Each degree is an equal distance apart, at 69 miles, 111 kilometers.
Who rules Andorra?
Since 1278, the tiny country of Andorra, nestled in the Pyrenees between France and Spain, has been jointly ruled by two people who live outside the country. The President of France and the Bishop of La Seu d'Urgell in northeastern Spain. France and Spain jointly take responsibility for the defense of Andorra.
Where is the Barbary Coast?
The Barbary Coast refers to the countries in northern Africa that are located along the Mediterranean Sea. Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, and Egypt. Though the name Barbary Coast comes from the Berber people who inhabit the region, it is best known for its association with pirates from the 16th through the 19th centuries.
How can I measure how much rain falls where I live?
Any container with a flat bottom and flat sides can measure rainfall. The width of the top of the container must be the same as at the bottom of the container. But the diameter does not matter. It could be a device purchased for measuring precipitation or something as simple as a coffee can.
How fast is the Russian economy expanding?
The Russian economy grows at approximately 7.9% per year, with most of the growth coming from the energy sector.
Why do people travel to Mecca?
The Holy Book of Islam, the Quran, requires that all Muslims make a journey known as a pilgrimage, to the city of Mecca at some time in their lives. Mecca, located in Saudi Arabia, is the holiest city of Islam, as it was the birthplace of Muhammad, the founder of Islam in the 6th century, and contains many important religious sites. Non-Muslims are forbidden to enter Mecca.
Which South American territory has yet to gain its independence?
French Guiana, on the northeast coast of South America, has been a colony of France since 1817. It is officially a department state of France and is the launch site of the European Space Agency.
How was the Earth formed?
Scientists believe that the Earth was formed, along with the rest of the solar system, from a massive gas cloud. As the cloud solidified, it formed the solid masses such as the Earth and the other planets.
What is a nautical mile?
Used for measuring ocean-based distances, a nautical mile is equivalent to approximately 6,076 feet. 1,852 meters, or 1.15 miles, 1.85 kilometers. The speed of ships is measured in knots. 1 knot is equivalent to 1 nautical mile per hour.
Why are road maps so difficult to fold?
The problem lies with the multitude of folds required to return the map to its original, folded shape. The easiest way to fold a road map is to study the creases, and to fold the map in the order that the creases will allow. But once you've made a mistake, the folds have lost their telltale instructions. To fold a road map, begin by folding it accordion style, making sure that the front and back of the folded design appear on top. Then, once the entire map is folded accordion style, fold the remaining slim, long, folded paper into 3 sections. And, voila, your road map is folded.
What is balkanization?
Balkanization is taken to mean the fragmentation of a country into ethnic, language, or cultural divisions by territory. It is what happened to Yugoslavia, a former country in the Balkans that disintegrated into different territories and ultimately countries. These new nations engaged in war with each other, practicing forced deportations of ethnic groups and mass killings of unwanted ethnic group members.
How big is the area of the North Pole ice region?
The Arctic ice mass covers an area of 1.59 million square miles, 4.1 million square kilometers.
What did the average European know about the world in the Middle Ages?
In Europe in the Middle Ages, most individuals' knowledge of the world was quite limited. Geographic knowledge developed by the Greeks and Romans, who knew the earth was a sphere, was all but lost in Europe. Europeans of the time thought of the world as flat and composed of only Europe, Asia, and Africa.
How many places on Earth have evidence of asteroid impacts?
There are about 160 places on Earth that display evidence of asteroid impacts. Depending on the size of an asteroid, it can have significant effects on the planet. If an asteroid strikes the ocean, it can create huge destructive tsunamis or tidal waves. If an asteroid strikes land, it can create a huge crater, cause earthquakes, and propel debris into the atmosphere, creating major climatic changes.
Are there an equal number of boy and girl babies born?
Though scientists aren't sure why it occurs, there is an average of 105 boys born for every 100 girls.
Where is the world's largest church?
The Basilica of Our Lady of Peace in Yamoussoukro, Ivory Coast, is the world's largest church, covering 100,000 square feet, 9,290 square meters. Built in 1989 by President Félix Houphouët-Boigny, the church has seating for 18,000 people. In 1983, Houphouët-Boigny relocated the capital of the Ivory Coast from Abidjan to his hometown of Yamoussoukro.
Where was Checkpoint Charlie?
Checkpoint Charlie was a famous crossing point on the Berlin Wall between East and West Berlin. Used mainly by tourists and U.S. military personnel.
How are different types of climates classified?
The German climatologist Olademir Koppen developed a climate classification system that is still used today, albeit with some modifications. He classified climates into 6 categories: tropical humid, dry, mid-latitude, severe mid-latitude, polar, and highland. He also created subcategories for 5 of these classifications. His climate map is often found in geography texts and atlases.
What was East Timor?
East Timor, its former name, is now the Democratic Republic of Timor-Leste, a country adjacent to the most eastern province of Indonesia. After being under the control of Portugal for 4 centuries, the region came under Indonesian rule. Later, in 1975, East Timor declared independence. Indonesia consequently invaded, killing about 100,000 people. In 1991, the international community condemned Indonesia for this end. The additional massacres and human rights violations that followed. Indonesia eventually relinquished control of East Timor, and Timor-Leste became an independent republic in 2002. With a per capita GDP of less than $800 per year. Timor-Leste is one of the poorest countries in the world.
What are the largest metropolitan areas in the United States?
The New York metropolitan area is America's largest, with 20 million people. Los Angeles is second with 15 million, Chicago is third with 8.5 million, Washington, D.C., is fourth with 7 million, and San Francisco is fifth with 6.5 million.
Which country was the world's first welfare state?
In 1936, New Zealand became the world's first welfare state by offering its citizens full social security and health benefits.
When do countries in the Southern Hemisphere observe daylight saving time?
Because daylight saving time is an effort to save daylight during the summer months. Daylight saving time in the Southern Hemisphere occurs from October through March.
Measured by area, what is the largest city in the United States?
Juneau, Alaska, the capital of the state, is the largest city in the United States. With over 3,100 square miles, 8,000 square kilometers.
How many islands make up Indonesia?
Indonesia is composed of over 13,500 islands. Of these, only 6,000 are inhabited. Indonesia is the world's largest archipelago and was formerly known as the Dutch East Indies. The area had been under the control of the Netherlands since around 1600, but declared its Independence in 1945, after being subjected to Japanese rule during much of World War II.
Who owns Antarctica?
Though Antarctica is a cold, icy, barren territory, 7 countries claimed portions of it in the early 20th century. All of these claims were defined by lines of longitude. And problems arose as many of these claims overlapped. In 1959, the Antarctic Treaty was established, proclaiming that no additional claims could be made upon Antarctica and that the continent would be used solely for scientific purposes.
Who is Alberto Fujimori and what has he done for Peru?
Alberto Fujimori, who was president of Peru from 1990 to 2000, was credited with ending terrorism in Peru and turning around a devastated economy. Some believe, however, that he trampled on the rights of individuals and indigenous people during his oftentimes authoritarian rule. He later was convicted on charges of abuse of power in ordering the illegal search of the apartment of his security chief's spouse. He was sentenced to 6 years in prison.
Is childbirth still a significant cause of death for women?
From the beginning of time until the mid-20th century, a leading cause of death for young women was complications during childbirth. Now, in developed countries, there is almost no risk of death during pregnancy and labor.
What is the primary religion throughout Latin America?
Due to Spanish and Portuguese colonization, most Latin Americans are Catholic, about 83%. Protestants make up about 7% of the region. And the rest are atheists, non-religious, animists, or other religions.
What is the capital of Australia?
The capital of Australia is Canberra, which is located in a federal territory, similar to Washington, D.C., within the Australian state of New South Wales. When Australia was founded in 1901, both Sydney and Melbourne wanted to become the capital city. In 1908 it was ultimately decided that a brand new capital city would be built and located away from the coast. Canberra is the largest city in Australia that is not on the coastline, population 334,000.
What were the 7 wonders of the ancient world?
while there was often disagreement by ancient and classical scholars as to which major works of art and architecture could be considered wonders, these 7 were nearly always on the list. The Pyramids of Egypt, the only remaining wonder, the Colossus of Rhodes, on the island of Rhodes in Greece. The Temple of Artemis at Ephesus, a marble temple in Turkey, the Mausoleum of Halicarnassus. Bodrum, Turkey, the statue of Zeus at Olympia, an ivory and gold statue in southwestern Greece. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon, an enormous garden building, with plants of every kind, near Al-Hilla, Iraq, and the Lighthouse of Alexandria, on the island of Pharos, near Alexandria, Egypt.
Which country is the top exporter of goods and services?
Germany exports $1.113 trillion in goods and services. It is followed by the United States, with $1.024 trillion, and China, with $974 billion.
Can you ski in New Zealand?
New Zealand's South Island is famous for having some of the best skiing in the Southern Hemisphere. The centre of New Zealand skiing is Queenstown, which is a few hours by plane from capital city, Auckland. Ski season is July through September, when winter hits the countries of the southern latitudes.
What are ice core samples and why are they important?
An ice core sample is a thick column of ice, sometimes hundreds of feet long, that is produced by drilling a circular pipe-like device into thick ice and then pulling out the cylindrical piece. Ice core samples from places like Greenland and Antarctica provide scientists with important clues about past climates. Air trapped in the ice remains there for thousands of years, so when scientists collect ice cores, they can analyze the air to determine the composition of the atmosphere at the time the ice was formed. Sediments and tiny bugs are also found in the ice and provide additional clues to the state of the natural world at the time the ice was deposited.
How many Internet users are there in the United States?
There are more than 211 million Internet users in America, making up approximately 72.5% of the population. 15% of all Internet users in the world are located in the United States.
Where is the world's largest marsh?
The Everglades in Florida is the world's largest marsh, consisting of 2,185 square miles, 5,659 square kilometers. The water across the southern Florida marsh averages 6 inches, 15 centimeters, in depth. The Everglades is an endangered ecosystem, threatened by excess drainage and the introduction of exotic plants.
How many islands does Hawaii include?
There are a total of 122 islands in the Hawaiian chain. The southernmost island, Hawaii, is the largest, 4,000 square miles, 10,360 square kilometers. The two westernmost islets are known as the Midway Islands and, while they are part of the United States, they are not part of the state of Hawaii.
Who is the biggest producer of oil in Europe?
Norway wins as Europe's biggest oil producer, producing approximately 3.2 million barrels per day. The United Kingdom and Denmark are the second and third biggest oil producers in Europe.
Why is the growth rate declining?
A big reason why the rate of growth is slowly declining is because people are delaying marriage longer. Also, the wide availability of contraception is having a positive impact on decreasing the number of unwanted births.
What are the 7 hills of Rome?
The city of Rome sits upon 7 hills, Capitoline, Quirinal, Viminal, Esquiline, Saelian, Aventine, and Palatine. According to ancient legend, the first settlement in the area, the city of Romulus, was built upon Palatine.
How many islands make up the Philippines?
The Philippines are composed of 7,100 islands. Only 1,000 of these are inhabited and 2,500 still remain unnamed. The islands are divided into 3 main groups: the Luzon region in the north, the Visayan region in the middle, and the Mindanao and Sulu region in the south.
How much beef does Australia export?
Australia is responsible for more than 26% of the world's beef exports, 1,203,000 metric tons.
How can I determine the distance between 2 places by using a scale?
By using a ruler, compare the distance between 2 points on a map with the Information on the scale to calculate the actual distances between the 2 points. For example, if you measure the distance between 2 towns as being 5 inches and the ratio says 1:100,000, then the actual distance between the towns is 500,000 inches, 7.9 miles, 12.7 kilometers.
How many illegal immigrants are there in the United States?
Some estimates take into account responses to the U.S. Census survey, pegging the number at approximately 11.3 million people.
How many desalination plants are there?
There are approximately 13,000 plants located throughout the world. Saudi Arabia alone accounts for 24% of the world output of fresh water from desalination.
What is the best way to help after a disaster?
Disaster relief agencies such as the Red Cross are in vital need of money after a disaster to purchase necessary items for victims or provide financial support to them. Call your local chapter of the Red Cross to find out how to help. Donating food or clothing places additional burdens on the agencies in the immediate aftermath of a disaster, as personnel are not available to sort, clean, or distribute donated goods.
What is Micronesia?
The region known as Micronesia consists of islands east of the Philippines, west of the international date line, north of the equator, and south of the Tropic of Cancer. Approximately 600 of the islands in this area united in 1986 to form an independent country, the Federated States of Micronesia. Those 600 islands join the Federation. There are approximately 1,500 other islands in the region, including the independent countries of the Marshall Islands, Kiribati, and Palau.
How do forest fires help forests?
An occasional fire is often necessary for a forest. Forest fires clear undergrowth, giving more room for trees to grow, thus rejuvenating the forest. Since forest fires are usually extinguished by firefighters as rapidly as possible, the amount of undergrowth in forests has increased. This extra undergrowth can become extremely flammable, making fires even more dangerous to people. A policy of allowing the forest to burn naturally, while protecting human structures, produces a more natural environment.
How many Muslims make a pilgrimage to Mecca each year?
Each year, approximately 2 million Muslims from around the world make a pilgrimage to Mecca during the last month of the Islamic calendar. While hundreds of years ago the trip took weeks or months to complete. From the vast reaches of the Islamic Empire. Today most people from great distances use the modern conveniences of travel and fly to Saudi Arabia.
What is the busiest airport in the world?
The busiest airport in the world, in terms of numbers of passengers annually, is Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport in Atlanta, Georgia, with over 78 million passengers annually. The next busiest is Chicago, Illinois' O'Hare International Airport, with 70 million passengers per year.
What did Marco Polo note in his journals about the Chinese fleet, when he arrived in the 13th century?
Marco Polo noted that Chinese ships had crews of more than 300, cabins for 60 people, and 4 sailing masts.
Why is every map distorted?
No map is completely accurate because it is impossible to accurately represent the curved surface of the Earth on a flat piece of paper. A map of a small area usually has less distortion because there is only a slight curve of the Earth to contend with. A map of a large area, such as maps of continents or the world, are significantly distorted because the curvature of the Earth over such a large area is extreme.
Why is Cabinda separate from Angola?
Cabinda, though a province of Angola, is separated from the bulk of Angola by approximately 25 miles. 40 kilometers, of the Democratic Republic of Congo. In 1886, Belgium gave this tiny area to Angola. Cabindans have recently taken up arms against Angola in the hope of obtaining independence.
What is Southeast Asia's largest oil-producing country?
Indonesia produces approximately 1,136,000 million barrels of oil per day, making it the 20th biggest oil producer in the world.
What were Lewis and Clark looking for?
President Thomas Jefferson sent Meriwether Lewis and Army officer William Clark to search for a Northwest Passage, a waterway that would connect the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. Beginning in May 1804 and lasting through September 1806. The two men and their expedition party traveled through the uncharted Louisiana Territory and the Oregon Territory. Though they did not locate a Northwest Passage, Lewis and Clark documented the geography of the West.
What is the oldest public park in the United States?
In 1634, William Blackstone sold 50 acres of his land to the town of Boston. This pasture land was set aside for common use and called the Boston Common, making it the oldest public park in the United States. The Common is situated in front of Massachusetts State House and has always been open public land.
What two countries emerged from Czechoslovakia?
Czechoslovakia was created at the end of World War I, 1918. By the Allies as a new country containing the area where the Czechs and Slovaks live. In 1967 and 1968, Czechoslovakia attempted to move away from communism. But the Soviet Union and Warsaw Pact countries invaded, squelching such aspirations. This Prague Spring, as it was known, was the first military action taken by the countries of the Warsaw Pact.
What countries are threatened the most from rising sea levels and may cease to exist in the 21st century?
Low-lying island nations of the Pacific and Indian Oceans are most at risk. Most notably Tuvalu and the Maldives. Other candidates for severe flooding and reclamation of coastal land by the impending sea include Bangladesh, India, Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, and China, affecting the lives of hundreds of millions of people.